it can be a little bit scary for sure to make that jump into specializing in something. But honestly, when I look back at it, it is truly just making the space for the things that you want to do.
Welcome to Off the Memory Card, the podcast where photographers talk about everything but taking photos, because photography is only 10% photos and 90% building a life and business you love. I'm Kathleen Burns. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Off the Memory Card. I'm Kathleen. We are in week 3 of our series of digging a little deeper into very specific areas of photography and talking to experts in those areas. And today we are talking about one of my most favorite things in the whole world, newborn photography. And I have an extraordinary newborn photographer with me, Miss Alison Adkins. Welcome to Off the Memory Card.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
It is so nice to have you here. Tell me, first of all, a little bit about who you are as a person and as a photographer.
Well, I am a wife. My husband is a pastor and a fireman, so we got a little bit of a stress level there at times. I am a mom of 5 kiddos that we homeschool, and then I'm a photographer. I'm so blessed for sure in all of those areas, and I never really imagined that I would get to do something that I love so much for work.
Oh, isn't it amazing?
Yes.
What an amazing life you've built for yourself. 5 kids. She actually has her 2 daughters with her today. They're behind the camera, but I think that's so awesome that they came along with you to watch. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up getting into photography and landing in the newborn space.
Well, when I used to work in insurance, actually.
Okay.
Yep. For, goodness, I don't know, 15, 16 years here and also in Virginia where we lived for a little bit. So I had an office job in insurance. When our 3rd child was born, it just kind of didn't make sense for me to work anymore away from home. And so I quit my job, which was stressful because at the time we were cutting our salary in half, literally, but just felt like it was the right thing to do. And just kind of started at that point, you know, probably like every photographer starts maybe as a hobby, just something fun, taking pictures for friends. And then it just worked into, you know, I would do sessions on the days that my husband was off from the fire department, and it just turned into a passion, just something that I loved so much.
I love it. How did you specifically get involved with the babies?
Okay, so when I first started 13 years ago, I did everything. I didn't tell anyone no. I did weddings, I did seniors, you know, families, kids, everything. And a few years into it, I just started like, I couldn't wait. You know, I'd look forward to the newborn sessions. I would look at my editing list and be like, oh, this one's coming up. I get to edit the newborn now, and just so excited and giddy and just loved it. So that kind of was what, you know, I started thinking, I think there's more to this. I think that there's something special about being able to say that you are a newborn photographer in particular and not just an everything photographer. And so I kind of had that churning for a couple of years before I decided, because I had built such a clientele, so many people. And, you know, I mean, we're probably 9 or 10 years in at this point. And, you know, so many people that had started as clients had become friends, and, you know, looking at them and saying, I can't take your pictures anymore. You know, I'm only going to take it. It was so hard. And so, but of course they understood, and I still do offer many sessions throughout the year that everyone is welcome to join. And so that was kind of how I bridged that gap. But for the most part, it was just kind of listening to that inner prodding, like, this is what I love the most, and maybe this is how I should go. And so it took me a couple years, but it was one of the best decisions I made business-wise.
Fantastic. And you do so much work. I think a lot of people who haven't necessarily niched down, and I am one of those people just because I can't make decisions and I do love to do it all.
Yes.
But people who are wanting to niche down specifically into newborn photography like yourself, and they have that fear of, well, what if I don't get enough work? What if I don't get enough clients? Is that something that resonated with you at that time?
Yes, for sure. For sure. That was a big fear. But the thing is that when you say no to other things, you suddenly have the space to do the things that you want to do. So, you know, I might turn down a particular type of session, but then the next day somebody says, I've had a baby 2 weeks ago. Can you please get me in? And suddenly, I have the space to get that person in. And so it's just kind of a balancing act. It can be a little bit scary for sure to make that jump into specializing in something. But honestly, when I look back at it, it is truly just making the space for the things that you want to do and just riding it out when you feel like, oh, it's kind of crickets around here right now. So,
and do you feel that, marketing yourself as solely newborn photographer really helped that clientele grow as well?
For sure. And other photographers would recognize that, and they would say, I'm sending you my newborns. Yes. And I'll say, I'm sending you my wedding and my seniors and my prom and, all the things.
I love
like that.
Collaboration.
Because you know what? That's what makes the world go round. We all have special things.
And that's a perfect time for me. I want to mention not only how talented you are as a photographer, but what an incredible human this lady is.
Oh.
Little personal story. The first time I ever spoke to you, which I, of course, knew of you and your work, I had a client who I'd worked with for a long time, and they were getting ready to have a baby, and they were really excited about their newborn photos. And as soon as they had their baby, I got the flu.
Oh, goodness.
We're like, okay, well, we'll push this back a couple of weeks. It'll still be okay. Your baby will just be a couple of weeks old. We'll make it happen. I got over the flu. Immediately, I got shingles. And I'm feeling horrible. Yes, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And these are great clients of mine.
Right.
And I said, well, let me try to get you in with another photographer. And she said, I want the best.
No.
And I'm like, well, I can tell you who the best is.
No,
I said, I cannot promise you that I can get you in with her, because you do a lot of work and you plan in advance, and people book you months and months in advance. I said, but let me try. I reached out to you, expecting you to just kind of be like, oh, I wish I could, but I'm too busy. And maybe you probably were very busy, but you immediately were just so compassionate. It was like, I would love to help. Like, I want to make sure they get images of this time in their life. Sure. And you made it work. And I just think that's so awesome. So thank you, first of all, for doing that. And I have to say, about a month or two ago, we did that little girl's first birthday session, and they incorporated your newborn photos into that session. And I just thought during that, this is what collaboration looks like when photographers are able to help each other out. And so
it's perfect.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. My pleasure. I was honored that you asked me. Truly.
Oh, of course. So we'll get back on track a little bit to your business. Let's talk about newborn education, because becoming a photographer, a lot of it is self-taught, and there is a lot to it. You're learning camera settings, you're learning lighting, all the things. But newborn photography is another beast. You're taking so many things into consideration: baby safety, parents' comfort level, the posing. It is truly an art. I used to say no for a long time until I finally decided to pick it up. But how did you handle that? Did you take any specific courses or education to learn all of that?
Initially, I didn't. And I feel kind of like shameful about that. I just didn't
pretty
know.
common.
It's just like, oh, it's a baby. I felt pretty qualified since I'd had 5 children.
Of course,
right?
Yes.
All newborns are pretty much the same. And so when I decided to specialize in newborns, I did go and take a class down in Greensboro from a couple of wonderful ladies that have been doing it for years. One of them is actually a labor and delivery nurse. So she knows all the baby things and the poses, and, got to ask questions about safety. And so I did do that, as well as watching many videos of other people and then getting some hands-on experience. And then just as far as like safety with the parents are right there in the room with me. Like I do not, a while back I heard of somebody taking the newborn into a separate area away from the parents. And I'm like, who does that? And so the parents are right there. I shoot with a 35 millimeter. So I'm like super close to the baby when we're doing the beanbag poses. And then I just asked the parents, hey, I'm going to put your baby here in the little princess carriage or what have you. And I need you to come and I need you to sit right here. I need you to be able to grab the baby, so I'm very open with them. Like, I need you to spot me on this one. and maybe, one day my girls will be able to be my assistants. And so I just try to be very like, I tell them, I do not take my hands and my eyes off of your baby at any time. Like if I need to reach and get something, my hand is on your baby. If I need to step away to get something, I need you to walk over and put your, so, and it's just something that kind of becomes ingrained in you when you do it all the time.
I think it's great how you're like walking them through the process and letting them know everything you're doing.
Yep.
How important is all of that, the safety and the parents feeling comfortable with you handling their baby? Because if you think about it, other than the doctors who delivered their baby, you're the first stranger who is maybe even the first person other than them who is handling their baby.
For sure. I don't know. I do send them like a little prep guide and try to explain some things to them. Most of my work comes from referrals. I have a ton of nurse friends and clients who will send people to me. And I think that there's a level of trust that comes with, when someone you trust and, like your clients that you sent me, they trust you, they trust your opinion, right? And so I think that there's a lot that comes from that and the way that I get my business. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So you talk about, the referrals. Do you find yourself with a lot of repeat clients, moms who, had that second or third baby and they're coming back to you?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's one of the joys of the job for sure, is getting to see these people come back. And the once newborn is now a big sibling. And it's bittersweet for sure. But yes, that is such a pleasure to see that.
And what an honor to being able to document that family through the biggest milestones
for
of
sure.
their lives.
Yes.
Let's talk about your studio space a little bit, because you mentioned it is actually built onto your home. Talk about the thought process of doing that rather than kind of your typical, storefront. What was your reasoning for that?
Yeah. I shot in my home for many years. It was a space right as you walk in my home. It was a room off to the right. And I 5 or 6 years I shot in there.
Oh, wow.
And so that's really unorthodox these days, I think, to have such a busy business. And everyone was always so gracious about that. Looking back now, I'm like, that was such a small space. It was not much bigger than this room. And so very humble beginning for sure. And so it was about 3 years ago, my husband and with the help of some friends built the studio onto the side of our home. And it's just been such a blessing. But I did have someone ask me a few weeks ago, he was like, have you ever thought about just having a studio in Charleston? And, I was like, not really, honestly, because
everything you need right there.
Best of everything right here. My children are homeschooled. They're older now and a little more independent. They don't need my help all the time. And it's just, my commute is from my living room to my studio. And it's just such a blessing just to be home and to be able to, the time that is saved working from home. And I never really, there were a couple times that it crossed my mind. Maybe I could rent a place even in Elkview or, but then, the cost of that has to be passed on to your clients too, when you're paying a lot in rent and things. So,
well, kudos to your husband for building a studio.
He spoils me for sure.
That's incredible. Talk a little bit about the work-life balance of working so close to home and kind of what that's like.
It can be hard. Probably the computer work might trip me up the most, because it's like, well, it's 6 a.m. and I'm awake and
might as well work.
Yeah, might as well work. I have work I need to do, or late at night, or so you're not having a space to like leave that behind, shut the door and go home for the day is sometimes a little tricky. But I still think that the blessing of that outweighs the trickiness of it. So
walk me through kind of a typical day. And I know that's kind of a loaded question, because as photographers, there's really no such thing as like a normal or typical day, because it does change from day to day. But if you look at the majority of your days, walk me through kind of what that looks like.
I usually, when I do newborn sessions, I typically don't do any other sessions that day. And those are typically done in the morning. As you know, babies like to party all night. And then they'll sleep in those morning hours normally. And so I typically do a 10 a.m. newborn session on the days that I have them. And depending on what session they choose, it's an hour, 2 or 3 hours. And then, I immediately put the photos on my computer and back them up. You know how that goes, like before I get distracted. And then it's depending on what the kids have going on that day. If we have to run to ball games or church or co-op, whatever it looks like, I may do some editing in the afternoon. I'm not a real good night person. Like when it hits 9 p.m., y'all, I'm like, Mom's going to bed. I'm clocking out.
I think I went to bed at 8:30 last night.
Yeah, yes. But you probably get up early, right?
Yeah.
I get up early, and that's usually my time to edit and answer messages and things like that. So
when you're working in your studio space, even though it's connected to your house, do you feel like, okay, at this time I'm at work, this is like work mode? Me?
For sure. Yeah, and my kids are old enough now that every once in a while the 6-year-old will come through the studio doors, and sometimes the dog follows him, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. But for the most part, yeah, they're, everybody knows Mom's working during this time, and so
having been in the industry for a while now, how many years have you been
13.
doing newborn? Okay. What changes have you seen? Because I do feel like there have been quite a few in the newborn industry.
It's changing. I think for quite a few years, it has been a very posed, perfect, blemish-free environment. And that's what people have wanted. I feel like it's changing more into a candid,
more lifestyle.
Yes, more of a lifestyle for sure. And so I offer both of those things right now. I just feel like it kind of, because there are some people who still love the pose, the very perfect looking pictures, and then also the more lifestyle. I want to come in and I want you to capture our family and all of the crazy goodness of the toddlers and all the things. So it's definitely, I think, transitioned over into more of just a comfy kind of style.
Do you feel like it's going to continue going in that direction? Where do you see?
I think it will for a while. I think it will, for sure.
Have there been any trends during your time in the newborn industry that you just kind of cringe? You're like, oh, why are we doing this?
Oh, man. I don't know about trends so much. Every once in a while you'll run across a certain style that just doesn't meet, you just don't, you're like, that's not my style, but that's the beauty of photography. We all have different, feels and things. I can't think of any trends. Something might come to me if it does.
Okay. I know, different parents also kind of have different visions for how they want their session to go and the look of the photos. And I feel like sometimes that's difficult when you have your style and you really kind of want to stick to it. So how do you handle that? Like, is it just if they have something totally out of left field that they want to do, like you still just do it and not necessarily like share it on your page kind of thing?
Yeah, you share your style. So certainly if they bring something, a lot of times people bring things that don't fit the baby well. Their great aunt has made it for them. So it's sentimental, right? And so, they want that. It's literally like swallowed the baby up. Sometimes I'll tell them like, hey, this is going to be really big. Are you okay with it? Would you rather take these photos at home on your on your phone, or because this is going to take up some time? And so, sometimes, but if I can tell that they really want that, then of course I'll incorporate that. And then I actually give them the option of choosing that later in their photos. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they look at it and say, that's not what I had in mind, and they decide not to. But yeah, and sometimes they'll bring props that are, that they've made for their little nursery is the word I'm trying to think of. And so, and like, it doesn't necessarily go with a prop that I would have chosen, but we do it anyway.
That's great. I think that's a good quality to have, because I think there are photographers out there who are kind of strict about that. But I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that, this is their baby. This is their session. They are paying us
for sure
to do this. So
yeah.
That's great that you do it that way. So when you deliver the galleries, do you deliver a certain number or just like the ones that you love? Do you let them choose which ones they want, how do you approach that?
I let them choose. I give them the option normally, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to be sending you a couple hundred photos. They're not edited yet. This is something my friend did years ago, and I thought it was really smart because I used to choose the photos and send them. And then I would get questions like, well, what about this photo? What about this pose? What about, and so I thought, you know what? I'm going to let people start choosing because they know their child's true smile. They know, if you're doing older children or whatever, they might have thought they loved a particular pose. And then when they see it, they're not that crazy about it. So they don't choose as many. And so I have a certain number that comes in the package. I let them choose. And then if they want to purchase more, they can.
Okay. I was going to say, so you have a set amount that they get with the package and then they can add on additional images if they like. Okay. Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about social media for a minute. I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but do you see any changes as far as that go? I feel like me personally, and I don't know if this is an industry-wide thing or not, I am seeing more parents who are opting out of sharing their children's images on social media. I feel like, especially in the last year or two, is that something you've kind of
I have noticed that in the last 6 months or so, I've had a handful that have asked me not to, and which is totally fine. And I don't ever, I always ask. I don't ever assume. Most people tell me right off the bat, I don't want any pictures shared, but I still ask. But yes, I am seeing that trend for sure.
Yeah. And I do respect that. And I found myself not completely avoiding it, but sharing less of my own child. And I guess it's just maybe the world we live in. And I think it's fine for, a photographer who is as established as you. It's not going to, hurt your business in any way. But I wonder for photographers who are just getting into the game and they do need to kind of put their work out, like if you would have any advice for them on how to handle these situations, like, do they do model calls? Like, what do you think?
For sure. I shared recently with a friend of mine who's trying to get started. And, I said, just do model calls. But I did encourage her to still charge something because there's just something about a completely free session that just kind of makes the whole process difficult.
Yes.
And so even if it's $50, even if it's $75, and you're still working hard for them, you're still giving them a great session and you're giving them images. And of course, in that case, you get to make clear, like, we're going to do this session. And then I would ask that you allow me to share and that you share, because as we know, we might share something, but then when the client shares it on their site or their page, then it gets so much more response. And so I think just setting up those model calls, getting your name out there, but most of all, just being building your business on being fair, being honest with people, trying to be consistent. I know there's sometimes that we try things in our business. I've tried things before and I don't like how that went. And then down the road, somebody will say, well, you did this for so-and-so, right? And it's not like you're trying to be unfair, but it's like, I did try that and it didn't work. I'm just a one woman show here, right. And sometimes we try things and it doesn't work out the way that we thought. But overall, being fair and being honest and being consistent with people, and then charging what you're worth, because that's the kind of clients that you're going to attract. So.
Do you have any other big pieces of advice for someone wanting to get more into the newborn photography space or who is just starting?
Sure. Yeah. I would say sometimes we get, if you know anything about newborn photography, you know that a sleepy baby is your friend, right? We want the sleepy, snuggly, dead asleep babies. We can do all the cute little things. And so it can be frustrating if a baby comes in and they're not asleep, right?
They're very fussy.
Yes, they're fussy. The parents are stressed because they're thinking, I'm spending this money and I only have this time frame.
And I think they feel guilty too.
They do. Yeah. It's very awkward.
You can't help that your baby's crying, but then you're trying to put them at ease.
Yes. Yeah. So, early on, I used to get flustered or frustrated about it. And I used to just, we can't do anything until the baby's asleep. And just over time, I've realized there are some things that you can do while baby is awake, as long as they're not fussy. Still a fussy baby is difficult, but you can put them in cute little pajamas and you can put them on the bean bag and you can get their eyes open and you can do some things with them. You can get their little fingers and toes and ears and So that's a big piece of advice that I would give somebody starting out. Like, don't become frustrated with that. Just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
Usually they won't stay awake the whole time. I've had a few that have been like, I'm here to party. They're not going to sleep. And then when it comes to families, like, embrace the crazy. Like, you know, when you have a newborn and a toddler, and maybe, you know, another kid that's a little bit older, like, their life is not magazine, you know, like, their life is not going to look like a magazine, right? Their life is going to be crazy and sweet. And, you know, I have some parents that come in and they're really uptight about it. You know, they want their child to
look perfect.
To smile at the camera, to do this. And, you know, I'll just tell them, like, we're just going to embrace this time. Like, we're going to, even if your little one is not doing exactly what I tell them to do, maybe they're making a silly face, like, you're just go with it, and let's know that
you're going to love these images.
Right. Like,
it doesn't
I'm
have
going
to
keep
perfect.
snapping. Like, that's what I would tell a photographer: keep snapping, because some of those sweet moments are when maybe they're not doing exactly what you would want them to do right at the moment, but you know, you just play with them and you just are silly with them, and those are honestly the ones that they usually end up loving the most. So.
I can tell by talking to you how much you love what you do.
Oh, I do.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that's also probably just the best advice is just continue to love it. Don't let the business aspect of it overwhelm you.
Right.
Where do you see your business going from here? You just want to continue doing what you're doing? Do you have any plans for the future?
I really don't. I don't have any huge ambitions. Like I said, I love so much what I do. And as long as people still continue to trust me with that, then I'll just keep, you know, style trends and things. I try to be like, okay, it looks like this is going in this direction. Let me incorporate, you know, a little lifestyle corner here in my studio, and just things like that, and just trying to pay attention to those things. But as far as like any huge goals, you know, incorporating my girls more at some point if they would like to, but nothing like earth shattering. No.
Do you think any of your kiddos will follow in your footsteps?
Maybe they're doing a co-op class right now in photography, and a couple of them have kind of really enjoyed that. So.
Speaking of classes, have you ever considered teaching newborn photography, just out of curiosity?
I really haven't too much. I haven't given it a whole lot of thought.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
I do feel like it's something you would be very good at.
So yeah, but it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think you should think about it. Is there anything else you want people to know about you, your business, newborn photography in general?
I think we covered all of it. I just, again, it's something I do. I'm blessed for sure to do this. I consider it an honor. I do not take it lightly, not one bit. And, you know, even the smallest of interactions, with people that I get to have. And I love it. I know that with my 5 children, that was the, you know, 5 of the sweetest times of my life, you know, to have babies. And so I don't take it lightly that people trust me with that.
I love that so much. Yeah. Incredible. If anyone wants to check out your work, reach out to you. What's a good way to do that?
All of my newborn work, most of it, is under Newborn and Baby Milestones by Alison Adkins Photography. So, and you can usually, like, if you go to just Alison Adkins Photography was my original parent page. Right. You can find me probably from there. Okay. So yeah.
So I'll be sure to include the link for that in the show notes. Good. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your knowledge with me and your story. It's an incredible story. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for joining me. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to Off the Memory Card. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you'd like some more support on your photography journey, head over to usethatcamera.com.